I'm 82 years old, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment on Queens Boulevard. My monthly rent is $1,200. I have $7,000 in checking. I used to manage $200 million in client assets. My name appeared in the New York Times 9 times before 1998. I was managing partner of Whitmore Chen and Associates. You're about to hear from a man who destroyed everything. Not through accident, through choice. The question you're asking is, how does a brilliant man do that? Most think it's stupidity. They're wrong. Intelligence is exactly what enabled the destruction. Smart people construct elaborate deceptions. They rationalize and tell themselves sophisticated stories. That intelligence didn't save me. It just gave me a longer runway toward disaster. If you're struggling with gambling, if you're moving money in hidden ways, if you're lying to people you love, listen carefully. The outcome is fixed. You will lose everything. It's not if, it's how much you want to lose before you understand. That's what I'm here to tell you. I met Margaret at Yale in 1963. We married 4 years later in Connecticut. By 1975, I had made partner at Whitmore, the youngest in firm history. The brownstone in Brooklyn Heights cost $92,000. Margaret decorated it with an instinct for light I never possessed. By 1982, we had Robert and Claire. The Hamptons cottage came next. Every August, Margaret prepared for weeks. She made a bouillabaisse people talked about for months. The children looked the way children should in photographs. I was the man who had everything arranged correctly. The first serious gambling was winter 1984 at Atlantic City. A client invited me to a poker game at the Sands. High-stakes tables in private rooms. Men wore no logos. Drinks were never less than 25 years old. I won $2,300. Driving home, I felt something I hadn't since childhood. The world had arranged itself to reward me specifically. By summer 1985, I was going twice a month. Margaret asked about the trips. I told her a client needed counsel. This wasn't entirely untrue. I convinced myself this was mental recreation. I researched games and studied professionals. This felt like work. If it was work, it wasn't deception. That's how you justify it. You create lies sophisticated enough that none register as dishonesty. Promoted to senior partner in 1987, Margaret cried when I told her. Not from joy, but relief. I was traveling 3 nights weekly for depositions that may not have existed. The pattern developed rhythm. Friday at 7 p.m., blackjack until 11, poker until 4 a.m., drive home with shaking hands. By 1990, I had won $140,000 over 6 years and lost $130,000. The net gain obscured the mathematics. I mentioned only the wins, casually, as amusing anecdotes. Money disappeared and reappeared from accounts she never reviewed. A real estate investment, a consulting fee, a bonus to myself. Margaret trusted me completely. She had been raised to believe a husband's finances were his concern. This trust gave me tremendous freedom. I used it exactly as one might predict. Las Vegas changed everything in 1992. A conference on entertainment law. I stayed extra days. The Bellagio card rooms were faster than Atlantic City, more aggressive, more international. I saw men who had already won and lost fortunes. I bought in for $10,000, more than I'd ever brought. I played Texas Hold'em. I broke even over 8 hours, but something rewired in my brain. The idea that I could sit with genuinely skilled players and hold my own. Atlantic City seemed provincial. I planned Vegas trips that had no conference attached. I told Margaret it was a client case, a simple direct lie. By 1994, I was going monthly. I flew for 3-day trips on supposed client matters. High-roller suites were available to men like me, men who could lose significant amounts and show up the following month. I was assigned a personal host named Danny. He knew my drink preference and the games I preferred. This service was free because I was losing at a pace that made his salary irrelevant. Las Vegas had given me a role. I was a serious player, not a tourist, a peer to men who had actually achieved wealth. The brownstone felt like someone else's museum. Margaret tried engaging me in conversations about Robert's academics or Claire's artwork. She showed me a painting. I nodded and retreated to the study to review papers that didn't exist. Robert came home crying once, struggling with Spanish homework. He wanted his father's help. I told him I had a conference call. I didn't. I went to the study and closed the door. A child asked for his father, and the father couldn't manage it. I constructed a justification. I was under stress. The firm was demanding. I would do better tomorrow. By 1996, I was in Las Vegas every 3 weeks. Losses accelerated. A single bad night might cost what used to be my yearly salary. I kept 2 financial records, one real, one fictional for Margaret. I sold the Hamptons cottage, telling her the market would collapse. She hesitated. She loved that house, but trusted my judgment. I used most proceeds to pay casino markers. Remaining proceeds disappeared in 6 weeks. Margaret asked directly in early 1997 why I seemed distant. We were in bed. It was her first confrontation in years. "Are you unhappy with me?" I told her I wasn't unhappy. I was tired. Being senior partner was all-consuming. I loved her. That was true. But that's what no one tells you about addiction. It lives inside love. It doesn't replace love. It coexists with it. I loved my wife and systematically lied to her face. By spring 1997, the casino was calling about unpaid markers. The sums exceeded $2 million. I had earned that over 15 years. Lost it in 18 months. The casino was patient. They expected I would eventually win. They were wrong, but they were willing to be patient while I found a solution. This is the moment I made the decision that separated everything after from everything before. I went to the safe deposit box and removed my grandfather's Rolex watch. It was gold. From 1935. The only object I owned, passed down with instructions, I would pass it to Robert. My grandfather had written a letter describing the watch as a symbol of the man I hoped to become. Reliable, present, keeping time for those who depended on me. I took it to a pawnbroker in Manhattan. He paid $53,000. That money lasted 13 days. When it was gone, I understood something clearly. The watch had been the last physical thing connecting me to my grandfather. The last tangible reminder I had a past containing meaning. I had converted that meaning directly into chips. I had traded my inheritance for one more night. I stopped going home to sleep. I checked into a hotel near the office. I would work, send emails, then drive to Newark and catch a red-eye to Vegas. I would play 36 hours, lose whatever I could access, return to the office. Margaret understood something was terribly wrong, but I had constructed a narrative that was impenetrable. The narrative was that my marriage suffered because of career pressure, not gambling, client demands, market pressures, partnership burdens. She suggested therapy. I told her therapy was a luxury we didn't have time for. Be patient, I said. It's temporary. It wasn't. By fall 1997, I was taking loans against house equity. I told Margaret the firm was considering bankruptcy and I was securing assets. The firm wasn't bankrupt. I was. I had leveraged the house to its limit, borrowed against my 401k, taken credit card cash advances at 23%. I had become a man who moved money in darkness. Then something in my chest began to hurt, a pain in my shoulder that intensified when I played. I ignored it. I ignored it at a World Series tournament. I ignored it sitting with Robert watching hockey. He was 14, beginning to understand his father was not reliable. I had a heart attack January 16th, 1998, at the Bellagio. I was down $37,000, up to my limit in markers. The pain had progressed from shoulder to chest. I remember thinking this was inconvenient. I remember thinking I needed to finish the hand. Then I remember nothing. I woke in Desert Springs Hospital. Margaret was there, Claire. Robert was there but wouldn't look at me. The doctor explained I had experienced a significant cardiac event. I was 54. My arteries were severely compromised. I would need surgery. I needed to reduce stress. He didn't know my stress was internal. I didn't return to the office. Margaret discovered the truth 3 weeks later. A lawyer from the casino called our house. She explained I owed $980,000, due within 30 days. Margaret hung up and looked at me and asked one simple question. How long? How long had I been lying? The answer was 15 years. 15 years of fake Friday trips. 15 years of money moving through accounts she didn't know existed. I didn't have an excuse. All my justifications were revealed as transparent. She didn't cry. That struck me. She simply sat down. She had passed through sadness into something else, fatigue deeper than sleep. I filed for bankruptcy in 1998. The house sold for $820,000. After mortgages and equity loans, there was almost nothing. A weekend moving sale. People purchased pieces of my marriage. A Scandinavian dining set. Framed photographs. Rugs from Turkey. My wife watched without comment. I was forced to resign. The partners assembled in the conference room where I'd made decisions for 25 years. No one raised their voice. They were professionals. They offered quiet resignation rather than public dismissal. A junior partner I had mentored tried to catch my eye. I couldn't look at him. Margaret and I moved to a rented apartment in Forest Hills. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen remodeled in 1987 and never touched, a ceiling stain from an old roof leak, geography of failure. Margaret took a job at a museum gift shop. She was 61. She'd never worked outside home. She took it without complaint. I applied to smaller firms. Some interviewed, most didn't. My history was impossible to explain. Successful lawyer, lost everything to gambling. This combination made me useless. Robert didn't speak to me for 3 years. He was 17 when the house sold, already understanding his father was unreliable. Claire tried to maintain contact. She was 14. She had her mother's capacity for loyalty. She would call on my birthday, send a Christmas card. But formality broke my heart. She treated me like a distant relative. I took a job at a small firm in Astoria, $40,000 per year, 1/3 of what I'd made. Uncontested divorces, probate cases. These clients didn't know my history. They knew me only as someone who prepared their paperwork plainly. I was good at this work, humble, necessary. Pay was barely sufficient, no savings. One crisis away from the street. Margaret's health failed in 2005. Persistent cough. Stage 3 lung cancer. She'd never smoked. She began treatment, worked through chemotherapy until she couldn't. She continued being the person who held things together. The doctor gave her 18 months. She lasted 21. She died March 17th, 2007, 71 years old, 39 years married to me. At her funeral, Robert attended but didn't approach. Claire hugged me and wept. I understood Margaret's death was my last chance to make something right, and I had already squandered that. I didn't gamble after the heart attack. The desire was always present. Every night for years, I imagined returning. I fantasized about one good night, but I didn't go. Not because I was strong, not because I understood the damage. I didn't go because I was terrified of being the man who lost everything again. Fear was stronger than desire. That's not recovery. It's substituting one paralysis for another. Robert contacted me 5 years ago. He was 35, successful in finance. He wanted to meet. We met in a Manhattan coffee shop. He told me he was married. He had a daughter. He said his wife suggested inviting me to the hospital. He had said no. He was still saying no. He didn't think his daughter needed to know she had a grandfather. Then he said something I've replayed 10,000 times. I'm doing this for her, not for you. I don't forgive you. I don't think I ever will. Then he left. I ordered coffee I didn't drink. I sat for 2 hours not moving. I'm 82 and I have this regret. Not just one, multiple regrets. I traded my marriage for the fantasy of winnings that never materialized. I was absent from my children. I made my wife work in a museum gift shop when she should have been traveling and living. I didn't understand who I was before it was too late. There's a particular regret that comes with age, not sharp regret of youth when you can correct course, but dull, heavy regret of knowing correction time has passed. I'm telling you this because I don't know how much time I have left. I don't want this story to die with me. If my story stops one person from sitting at one poker table, from accessing one account they shouldn't, then maybe the years in this apartment meant something. Listen carefully. You are not smarter than the casino. You are not the exception. You are going to lose. The only question is what you'll lose before you understand. Please don't wait as long as I did. Don't wait until you're 82 and alone. Don't wait until everyone you love has learned to live without you. That's my final message. I never believed a man of my education, my discipline, my reputation could fall this far. And that's exactly why I fell. Certainty is the most dangerous drug of all. Don't do what I did. The cost is too high. If something in this story felt familiar, if you recognized even a shadow of yourself in my words, please stay. Subscribe. Leave me a comment below. Tell me I'm not speaking into silence, because the hardest part of being 82 and alone is wondering if any of it mattered.